Rick, you talked about forgiveness. Can you feel that God has forgiven you?
No, and I really was praying more to Mary lately and asking her to intercede for me because I thought for sure something would happen over Christmas. When I went to those 3 masses and I tried to meditate before the nativity, and I thought I would feel something, and I didn't, at least not.
You will. You will.
I'm going to share something incredible. It's a personal testimony about forgiveness. Ever since I was about 11 years old, I was willfully evil. Okay? Because I wanted to be evil, and that's the only way I could survive. So, I was in denial of my goodness. So when you are denying goodness and when you deliberately want to be evil, what a human mind can do is incredible. So have I made mistakes in my life? Have I committed sins in my life? Lots. There came a point in my life, especially after I left the church, there were many, many sins. The sins itself went up about tenfold.
Yeah.
Okay. So there were many. And for me, that guilt consciousness of having committed so many sins is it's incredible. I tell you, here I am. I was back in the church, and I've already had an encounter with Jesus in front of the cross. And 2 days later, I'm going to the priest, and 2 days, but it's a Thursday, then Friday, Saturday I wanted to, because Saturday night is Easter. So I had my encounter on the Thursday, Monday, Thursday. And when I went to the priest, and you know what the priest said to me? I don't have time, I'm going to sit here. You only say the important sins.
Wow.
All right. And said, okay, I absolve your sins. And I just got up and went away. Do you think I felt forgiven?
No.
No, I felt worse. I felt God is refusing to forgive me. Oh my God. You know what I mean? That's how I felt. That's how I felt that moment. Look, even God gave His only Son so He could deliver us from our sins. It is only a symbolic thing, if you look at it that way. But it has much deeper meaning that is irrelevant. But the point of the matter is, God is so forgiving. So forgiving. I came to realize at one point in my life, even with every sin I committed, God has something to do with it, because that is meant to glorify God in one way or the other. So, in the spiritual reality, God is still going to win, even out of my own sin. Satan is going to be defeated by way of my own sin, because the forgiveness is going to defeat him. The forgiveness of God is going to defeat him.
At what point did you really feel forgiven?
Somewhere in the middle of writing the book. many years later. Actually, it's about early part of writing it. I've come to know that.
It was still worth waiting, wasn't it?
Yeah, Satan did not defeat me by making me sin. God is still going to win. God is still going to win. How he is going to win, I don't know. But here I am, Lord. I'm standing in front of you naked.
And blessed.
Yeah.
And blessed.
Yeah. Just be prepared to stand in front of Jesus as naked as St. Peter was.
Yeah.
As
Do
naked.
you have any advice for Rick on how he can genuinely feel forgiveness?
Look, there is no magic pill to it. There is no straight answer to it. But one thing I can assuredly tell you, the mercy of God is real. The forgiveness of God is real. In between, what actually happens is he wants you to know more about yourself. He wants you to know more about yourself, more about what made you commit those sins. How it all these things transpired. Was there a beginning? Was there an end to it? What is it? Because actually, it's not the sin itself that is going to teach you the lesson. It's learning of your own Vasana. We discussed about Vasana last week. It's coming to realize your own Vasanas, what is making you commit those sins. That's where everything is. It is not the sin itself. See, what are the things?
So you have to have that kind of self.
You need to go through that self-exploration process.
Self-exploration.
So without self-exploration, there is no self-realization. See, so in the process of self-exploration, what you are doing is you are learning about your Vasanas. Okay, in the Christian church, they might call you your weaknesses or your habits. Let it be. But it is a lot more complicated than that straightforward. Okay, your Vasanas are not as straightforward. Your Vasanas has a lot to do with, even if you were to say in Hinduism, of your previous births as well. So it just didn't happen out of nowhere. See, before you were born as a human being, you were a spirit. You see, because your life is eternal. So you were a spirit. So what were you like a spirit before? You see, so it's not really that straightforward. It is not as straightforward. So you really need to know, what it is. See,
Do you think Judas is forgiven?
Absolutely.
Rick, what was your question?
Was Judas was forgiven.
Oh, yeah.
And do you, and here is my another question. Do you think, along the same line, do you think the sin of Judas was not providential? So did God have something to do with his sin?
Somebody had to do it.
You see?
I would have picked an easier way to come into life to begin with, and to go out, but
So did God will for that to happen?
he picked them.
Your thought
See,
process is
so,
just fine.
look, to assume that everything that went wrong and everything that happened in our lives and all of that, we are 100% responsible to that, that's not so. There was somebody who was I kind of shared that with you before. And, there was somebody who is someone who is in the intellectual spirituality, and he was trying to explain me what karma is. Okay, and I sat there and I asked him a question. Suppose, for instance, say I was born as a dog, and in the process of me being a dog, I've committed certain sins. Am I going to hell for those sins? So no, you didn't know. But guess what? The sins were still there, isn't it? So instead of being born as a man, I would rather be born as a dog and commit sins and never go to hell.
Okay. How are you going to explain
See,
That'd be a different life, all right.
that'll be a different life. Man, as a dog, how much freedom I have to commit sins? I would love it.
Wonder what Jesus would say about that.
So the thing is, it's not, it's not entirely ours alone. The more you learn about Vasanas, the more you would come to realize the will of God in everything that is happening to you.
Define Vasana again.
Vasana? Vasana is the propensity to do something habitually wrong.
Wrong, okay.
Habitually wrong. Understand that. You see? So there's a lot of mistakes we make in our lives. It had those propensity to become so habitual about it. It's there. See, that's what Vasana is. Now, that propensity and that tendency and all of that, how did that come about? See, that is where the introspection is not just the introspection, the contemplation goes into. Introspection is a logical way of looking at it. Contemplation takes you into the spiritual realms of it. See? So, when you're going to confession and things like that, what you are doing is you are introspecting. That's what you're doing. But contemplation is beyond that. Contemplation is looking at the will of God in what happened. See, even for Judas Iscariot, there is the will of God associated with it in his betrayal. So what is that will of God? So everything, it is there. So it's not as straightforward. It is not as there is no short answers to it, unfortunately. Answers are there. But
Stop beating yourself up in the process.
and another thing, Rick, the answer I got for myself is not necessarily the answer to you. See what I mean? It's not, because the life you lived and the life I lived are very different. I'm saying I was so willful in the sins I committed. You may not be. You probably were carried away. Your peers were like that. You were just put into it. It could be a number of different reasons. But why was Rick in that situation? Those are things, instead of being introspective, go into it more spiritually. Because what you're searching for is not your own action. It is not your own intention. It is not that. You are actually searching for the will of God in what happened. Even the wrongs you did. Even the wrongs you did. The wrong may be wrong, but what is the will of God in that wrong? After the death of Jesus, Jesus will win. He will win you over what had happened. You need to have that faith. So that's not the end of the line. That's not the end of Rick's story. It is not. Jesus is, is not done with you yet. How is he going to deal with you? Give him that opportunity. Have that faith. That makes all the difference in the world.